Hello and welcome to this edition of the ASIC Member Spotlight. My name is Michelle Njeri. I'm the ASIC Communications Officer. Today we get a chance to speak to Amelia Hopkins Phillips, the director at Somo Africa. She's going to be telling us about how Somo Africa is helping the youth and entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds to be able to create sustainable enterprises. Welcome, Amelia. How are you doing?
Thanks, Michelle. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on today.
So, I'd like for you to kindly give us a brief background on Somo Africa and your role in the company.
Yeah, so we work with entrepreneurs coming from marginalized communities around Kenya. We work across Nairobi, Kisumu, and Mombasa. And our core belief is people know their communities and know how to solve their own problems. And we think just way too often we look to outside to solve the problems of the poor instead of actually investing in people who come from backgrounds of poverty. So that's what we do at Somo. We start by providing knowledge to entrepreneurs to get started, both through hands-on training programs and also through digital tools that we've created. We then invest directly in businesses, helping them with what they need to get started. From there, we track our businesses using our own reporting tool that uses WhatsApp and USSD to track both the financials and the impact of the businesses, and then help connect them with additional financing as they start to grow. Lastly, we then help them with accessing markets. So we assist them with everything from the initial production to branding, packaging, labeling of the product to the end market where they're doing their sales.
How long have you been around and how many consultants are there in your team?
So we've been working for the last 5 years and we're right now a team of 42 people. So it's across the 3 cities that we work in, a mixture of individuals that are working on training our entrepreneurs, developing our content, working with our businesses in that initial investment stage, and then also doing sales for them.
That's great. And so, to date, you've been able to work with how many entrepreneurs and what sectors are these entrepreneurs in?
So from our training programs, we've graduated over 600 trainees. We've reached over 2,000 individuals now with our digital content. And we've invested in 138 businesses. So those businesses right now have created over 2,500 jobs. And we work across a lot of different sectors. Our focus is on businesses that can create some type of impact in the communities that they're from. So that impact could be that they're creating jobs for demographics of individuals that usually have low rates of employment opportunities, or they're providing products that are healthy or solving an educational or environmental need. So we work with everything from ag businesses, doing urban agricultural projects, recycling businesses, making different products out of trash. We work with businesses in food and hygiene and beauty production. And then we also work with some training institutes like programming schools.
You recently launched this production facility on Tuesday. Tell us about that and tell us about your other operation centers and how entrepreneurs can actually get plugged in.
Yeah, so Tanganesa is our newest initiative. So one of the things that we noticed from doing sales for entrepreneurs, both through our own online and physical platforms and also through third parties, was there was still a gap in the ability for entrepreneurs to, one, produce products that are certified. So like, for instance, getting Kenya Bureau Standards certification, and also look the way it needs to enter into certain markets. And so we launched this facility to allow entrepreneurs to access machinery and all the resources they need to produce their product while significantly reducing on their operational costs. So they can come in, use all this machinery, be able to produce their product. And then from there, we have our own print shop within the facility as well. They brand, package, label it right here. And then from there, we do sales for them so that they can access additional markets and grow their business and create more employment.
Your focus is on the youth. Is there also a focus on other groups such as women and the disabled? And in your experience, how do you empower people to achieve poverty eradication and social integration? I know you've mentioned it a bit, but could you please tell us more about the activities that go into it?
Yeah, so 78% of the businesses we work with are youth founded and 54% are female founded. So we definitely have a focus on creating opportunities for women and for young people. For instance, right now, one of our Mombasa cohorts that is running is fully focused on youth. Our focus is completely on businesses being started out of low-income areas. So with every single entrepreneur we work with, they're coming from a low-income background and they are addressing a need in one of the communities that they're from.
Please tell us about your Beruka 3-month training program and its role in building enterprises in low-income areas.
So Beruka is our socially focused training program. It teaches basic business skills, financial literacy, as well as helps entrepreneurs with that initial ideation stage. How do they really build a business that is focused on creating opportunities for people coming from low-income backgrounds. We also work with green enterprises. And throughout that process, they're both going through training with our team, but they're also set up with a mentor who's an entrepreneur currently in our portfolio, a business that we've invested in, who is running a successful business in their area and can help them through the whole process of going through that training and starting up that business. At the end of that training program, they then can pitch to receive capital as well from us.
Do you feel that youth unemployment in Kenya has slowed down social and economic development? Because we see instances sometimes of youth complaining that there are no jobs. And then, especially in low-income areas, you'll find that you have to have a connection. Is just to demystify the notion, do you think that unemployment, especially in low-income areas, has actually pushed the youth in these areas to start businesses? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I mean, just starting with, is it slowing down our economy? Definitely. Youth are the next generation. They're the individuals that are going to be leading this country at a certain point. And so investing in them to be able to, one, be able to support themselves and their families is important, but also to be able to think creatively and really innovative. What's next for Kenya is important. And so there's a huge necessity to invest more in youth, and they're also a huge percentage of this population. In terms of not having jobs, so I mean, you talk to youth everywhere and you hear them say, coming out of even university and degrees, that there's no jobs available, and that's a huge problem. But I think it's also led to a lot of youth thinking about self-employment and how do they create their own jobs and support each other. And that's something we've definitely seen across all the communities we work in. Definitely a lot of the entrepreneurs we work with have come from youth groups where they've started different projects together. So an example would be one of our entrepreneurs in Kayole, Greg, started a business called City Shamba. And it's an ag business where they've gotten a piece of land and they set up all these different urban ag setups. So some of them hydroponics, some of them like hanging gardens. And from that space, they will teach urban agriculture to women's groups and youth groups. And then they also sell those systems across Nairobi. So he has this whole youth group around him that is helping with that training, is helping with creating these gardens, is helping with distributing them. And it's a fully built up from the ground, these young people figuring out solutions, not just for themselves, but also for the community around them. And I think that's a great example of how when youth are seeing that there's not an opportunity to become employed, they're not just sitting around and not doing anything, they're figuring out solutions for themselves and their communities.
And from your observation, have these enterprises that you've been able to just oversee the development of, do you feel like they've been sustainable? And how does Somo ensure that?
Yeah, so our businesses are sustainable. After 8 months of running, 83% of our businesses are cash flow positive. On average, our entrepreneurs are making 2.5x what the average person around their communities is making. So there's a pretty large increase in income happening for individuals coming through our program. From just seeing what our entrepreneurs are doing in their areas, there are many stories of entrepreneurs and how they're becoming sustainable and how they've made their businesses help support not just themselves but also their families. And so another example of an entrepreneur is Jennifer. She runs a chili business here in Githurai where we have our Tanganesa space, and she uses the space to produce her chili products. She also has a chili farm, and she's passionate about creating natural products. And she, through her chili business, she employs single mothers. She's a single mother herself and wants to support other women to be able to support their families. So,
wow. Do you feel that unemployment in Kenya has slowed down to a great extent the social and economic development of the country?
So I think it does in any area. If you have a huge percentage of the population unemployed, then it's going to slow down things because people are not in a position to be able to think creatively about what to solve on a bigger scale if they're worried about putting food on the table. And so I think that's one of the things that is the biggest challenge when starting a business for a lot of the entrepreneurs that we see is they don't have a support system around them. Because, starting a business is always difficult, but if you are from a community where on a day-to-day basis, your family and friends are worried about basic needs being met, they're not going to be the support system to support your next big idea, your next big innovation. And so one of the things we try to do is create that community. So it's not just about the technical skills we provide or the investment we provide or the sales we do. It's providing a holistic program that really looks at the whole individual and how do we support that individual to be a leader in their community and build a business that's really going to impact that community long term. So I think the short answer is yes, I think it is slowing down the economy, but I think the biggest reason for that is you don't have the capacity to think about bigger solutions and innovate on those solutions if you are worried about basic needs being met.
That's very interesting. And apart from the barriers you've mentioned, what are the other barriers that the youth-led enterprises face? And how do you think the government can support more? Because there are some initiatives the government has put in place, but there's some that, they're still lacking.
Yeah, I think they're facing basically every single barrier possible. But just to name some of them, 77% of MSMEs in Kenya say that they struggle with accessing capital. 50% say that they struggle with accessing markets, whether it's because of not having certain certifications or just being unsure of what markets exist. Those are definitely big needs that we've seen across all the entrepreneurs we work with, but definitely it's even more apparent with the youth and women that we work with that there are a lot of training programs out there, but I think one of the issues is there's no direct solution to, okay, I get this training. How do I then access capital to start or to grow my business? How do I access markets? There's just so many gaps in the ecosystem still for supporting small businesses, and especially for supporting small businesses coming from marginalized communities.
Okay, and how do you think the government can actually help?
I think creating more avenues to both finance small businesses and also supporting the private sector to be able to do this work better. So working with startup enablers like Somo, for example, to be able to support us to be able to support these entrepreneurs.
And COVID has forced many entrepreneurs to shut down operations. What support have you as a hub been able to offer those struggling in the industry?
So one of the things that we did early days of COVID is make sure that we got more involved with deliveries for our businesses. So we were helping businesses access markets before that, but we went from being, I think, 11% of sales in 2019 to over 40% of sales in the first half of 2020. So in those early days of COVID, we were doing a huge percentage of the sales for our businesses. And that was definitely a piece of what kept them alive during that time, just making sure that we could do safe deliveries, we could help them with production, we could find markets for them, was an important thing. So that was probably one of the key things. The other one was just continuing to invest in businesses, making sure they had that startup capital, making sure they had some working capital to get them through hard times so that they would still be operational when things opened up more, as they are starting to now. It is definitely getting better.
Yeah.
There's certain sectors like furniture was a real struggle at a certain point last year and beginning of this year, and now there's lots more people buying.
And so what are your hopes for youth-led enterprises in Kenya?
I hope that more youth get into building businesses and creating jobs for themselves and for other youth around them. I think youth they are the future, and they're the people that are going to think the most about what world do we want to create, because it's going to be their world to run at a certain point. And so giving them more power and really investing in them more. I think sometimes we think of young people as, well, they need to learn and they need time to learn the ropes at another company or under someone with more experience. And yeah, that might be true, but you also sometimes learn by doing. And so investing in people, sometimes investing them to fail a few times before they succeed, but allowing that to happen is going to create a much more creative society that is better at solving problems.
Do you think that if basically companies like hubs were able to team up with manufacturing companies like yours, such as yourself, Somo, if you teamed up with manufacturing companies and were able to help them, do you think that it would spiral entrepreneurship amongst the youth? Because you see, there's government companies that can actually support this initiative, because this is such a big initiative, being able to locally manufacture. I think people like Kebs, since you're producing food, hair, soap, do you think that would really boost?
Yeah, and so we are working with Kirti already to make sure that all our operations within this facility are at the standards that they want. And so our entrepreneurs and our team go through that training with Kirti. And so then with Kebs as well, this whole facility will be within Kebs certifications, and all of our products will be Kebs certified. I think more initiatives coming from the government to work with private institutions would help with growing that model, where it's not always happening the other way around. So when more of the initiative is taken on the government side, that would definitely boost small businesses, which are a huge percentage of the economy, and so would boost the economy.
And the lifespan as well. Thank you so much, Amelia, for taking the time to actually meet with me. I do appreciate your time and you just enlightening us on unemployment and how the youth can actually overcome the situation in the country.
Thank you so much for having me.
Want to be featured on the Members Spotlight? Reach out to us via communications@asic.ke and let us tell your story.